Hello, and welcome to Trinity Episcopal Cathedral in the heart of downtown San Jose. My name is Julia McCrae Goldsmith. I have the pleasure of serving as Dean of this cathedral, and we are delighted to welcome you to the worship of God in any way that you're able to be with us. This morning, our sermon is based on the 21st chapter of Luke. When some were speaking about the temple, how it was adorned with beautiful stones and gifts dedicated to God, Jesus said, "As for these things that you see, the days will come when not one stone will be left upon another. All will be thrown down." They asked him, "Teacher, when will this be? And what will be the sign that this is about to take place?" And he said, "Beware that you are not led astray, for many will come in my name and say, 'I am he,' and the time is near. Do not go after them. When you hear of wars and insurrections, do not be terrified, for these things must take place, but the end will not follow immediately." Then he said to them, "Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and plagues, and there will be dreadful portents and great signs from heaven. But before all this occurs, they will arrest you and persecute you. They will hand you over to synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors because of my name. This will give you an opportunity to testify. So make up your minds not to prepare your defense in advance, for I will give you words and a wisdom that none of your opponents will be able to withstand or contradict. You will be betrayed even by parents and brothers, by relatives and friends, and they will put some of you to death. You will be hated by all because of my name, but not a hair of your head will perish. By your endurance, you will gain your souls. And this is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Christ. And in the one holy name of God, and in God's name, amen. What's your favorite genre of scary movie? Now, I'm not talking about anything you might have seen on CNN or MSNBC or Fox News this week. For me, it's crime dramas. You know the scenario. Someone does something wicked, but the culprit and the motive or means are obscure. However, there's a persistent sleuth, better yet, if it's an unlikely or compromised hero, who uncovers the truth and brings the evildoer to justice, and life returns to normal. Families and friendships and institutions survive mostly intact, if tarnished. Now, my sister, who lives with mental illness, loves medical dramas. She calls TLC the Impalement Channel and watches every death-defying story. And although these wouldn't be my first choice of entertainment, I do understand why they're so satisfying to her. The sick or wounded character whose life hangs in precarious balance is rescued by an intrepid doctor, often in defiance of medical conventions, and the suffering is relieved. Meanwhile, our favorite streaming services cater to a substantial market for end-of-history apocalyptic movies and series. Think of The Rain, Salvation, Aftermath, The Last Ship, and the somewhat satirical Don't Look Up. I have to say, this is not my preferred genre of scary movie either. If I have to suffer through one of these, I usually bury my head and plug my ears until the frightening parts are over. My husband, John, will attest to that. Now, like all scary movies, the apocalyptic genre generally does come to resolution. The terrifying scenario ends, but typically not until after civil society is eradicated and only a small company of heroes survive. I hate that outcome. As a fan of crime dramas, I prefer to see a protagonist root out the evil before the known world is destroyed, and I want to believe that institutions and communities have capacity for self-correction. Plus, I'm an extrovert, and I have little interest in a world with just a few survivors. Who would I talk to in coffee hour? But our scriptural tradition offers us plenty of apocalyptic stories, no? Today's gospel has Jesus predicting the destruction of the Jerusalem temple, a description not so much about the end of the world as about the end of a certain time, the end of the uneasy peace presided over by the Roman client kings of the Herodian dynasty. The magnificent Second Temple was the symbol of Jewish national identity, but it was also adorned literally and figuratively with symbols of official corruption. The beautiful stones and gifts dedicated to God were a relentless and very public reminder that the officials of the capital city actually cared little for the impoverished masses in the hinterlands where Jesus ministered. Then and now, the symbolic reminders of wealth and poverty within an urban-rural divide is profoundly destabilizing, if not end-of-the-world level apocalyptic. However, we know that Jesus did not think that the destruction of the beautiful and tainted temple was the actual end of the world, not at least as Luke reported it. Rather, in this lesson, he was teaching about an interim time, the time after a known political and ecclesial order had come to a costly end, but before the end of days, whose timing was unknowable, then as is now. A time then of plagues and earthquakes. You might say that Jesus was speaking to our time. Now, admittedly, his not quite end of the world prophecy was still plenty bad news. We heard it because, like the director of a scary movie, Jesus described all the present fears of his followers with an unflinching clarity. There will be wars, famine, and persecution, but also, like the scary movie genre, the terrifying scenario resolved in good news. There would be survivors, Jesus promised. He didn't say whether there would be few or many, although there were clearly enough for their descendants to fill coffee hour at Trinity, so I'm happy. But he did describe what they'd be like. Those who survived would be people who'd seen the worst and endured. They'd be possessed of their souls, wise and able to give unrehearsed voice to their faith. It's election season, as if any of us could have forgotten that for even a moment this week. Among many other political contests, a week ago, our diocese, the Diocese of El Camino Real, met for its annual convention. Shane Patrick Connolly organized our delegation, and our team was well briefed on all the candidates for diocesan offices, the budget, and resolutions. We had a few people running for diocesan offices and a really thoughtful critique of one of the resolutions, and we didn't prevail on any of them. I honestly wasn't especially upset. I think we fostered a meaningful debate, and selfishly, I like keeping our leaders closer to Trinity. But a colleague sent me a sort of post-convention consolation note, which I think is really meant for all of us. I appreciate the sincerity of your calling to Trinity and your willingness to share it with us. That is courage to me, and not only for the future of the church, but for right now. People of God, I too appreciate the sincerity of your calling to Trinity and your willingness to share it, because surely there are easier places to be a Christian and to minister in God's name. But the fact that we are here together, worshiping God amidst the complexity of downtown San Jose, emerging from a pandemic, that's profoundly courageous. And as your priest, I want you to hear the same thing my friend said to me, from me to you. You are courageous people, and we are more courageous when we encourage each other. You know, in the book Blink, The Power of Thinking Without Thinking, Malcolm Gladwell argued that being able to act intelligently and instinctively in the moment is possible only after a long and rigorous education and experience. Now, I'm quite sure my friend was able to reach out with words of spontaneous encouragement and compassion because he was formed in the hope of the church. He had been hearing words like, "But for you who revere my name, the Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in its wings all his life." Because of that, when difficult times come, he knew exactly what to say. My candidate was not elected, and the Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in its wings. A policy I dislike was approved, and the Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in its wings. My church isn't doing everything I wish it were, and the Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in its wings. You know, times of conflict and change demand that we act on our baptismal commitments, which we reaffirmed in church just last week, in ways that we never imagined. But we will not weary in doing what is right. As Benedictine sister Joan Chittister said, endurance is the sacrament of commitment. And with endurance, we grow in wisdom and capacity to give voice to God's saving truth. We grow in wisdom as we learn from our scriptures, speak our prayers, sing our songs, and listen to each other. And that is why we gather in Christian community week after week. Trinity, our city, and our country have never needed your witness more, your unwavering commitment to compassion, to learning, to listening, and to unconditional welcome. So today, and every day of the next election cycle, of the current pledge drive, of the upcoming holiday season, and of the entire time on earth that we are given by God, let us commit to one another and to encourage one another in God's name. Because here's what I know for sure. For you who revere my name, the Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in its wings.